You don't look like a CEO at all. This place doesn't welcome you. Get out of my bank. You stinking beggar. Those were the words Jamal Edwards, the reclusive CEO of Grayson Trust Bank, had to hear when he decided to inspect his newly opened branch by posing as an ordinary customer. Follow to the end to see what happens when a black CEO decides to test his own bank. Jamal Edwards, a black man with deep eyes filled with determination, drove his old car into the parking lot of the Grayson Trust branch. His battered car was out of place among the sleek luxury cars of other customers. Today, he wasn't the powerful CEO of one of the nation's largest banks. Today, he was just an ordinary customer, wanting to see if the promises of fairness and respect were truly being kept. He walked into the bank, a modern glass building with gleaming marble floors and lush green plants. Classical music echoed through the elegant space. Glances of scrutiny were directed at him. A black man dressed plainly in a luxurious setting. His old clothes contrasted sharply with the expensive suits and designer dresses of those around him. He felt an indescribable chill, a familiar feeling that always pained him. He approached the teller counter, where a young woman with bleached blonde hair and cold blue eyes sat. Her fingernails were painted bright red, sparkling under the crystal chandeliers. "Good afternoon. I'd like to make a withdrawal," he said, his voice deep but firm. The woman looked him up and down, a contemptuous smile flitting across her lips. "Do you have an account here?" she asked, her tone full of suspicion. "Yes, I do," Jamal replied, handing her his ATM card. His worn card was a far cry from the platinum and gold cards she usually saw. The woman took the card, flipping it over and over as if checking a counterfeit. "How much would you like to withdraw?" she asked, her tone unchanged. $5,000, Jamal said. The woman raised an eyebrow, a clear expression of disbelief. "5,000? Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Jamal replied, trying to remain calm. The woman began typing on the keyboard, but her movements were slow and clumsy, as if she were deliberately stalling. Other customers were served quickly and warmly, but Jamal was left standing, feeling invisible. The transaction bells rang continuously, but none for him. After a long while, the woman looked up. "I need to see your ID," she said. Jamal handed her his driver's license. The woman took it, flipping it over and over, then frowned. "I'm not sure if this is a real ID," she said. "This is a government-issued driver's license," Jamal replied, his voice beginning to lose patience. "I need to check it again," the woman said, then disappeared into a room behind her. The room with the intricately carved mahogany door was a stark contrast to his plain appearance. Jamal stood waiting, feeling like he was on trial. The scrutinizing eyes of other staff and customers made him feel like a criminal. He recalled the promises of fairness and respect, promises that today seemed like nothing but lies. After a while, the manager appeared. He was a middle-aged man with a bald head and an expensive suit. He looked at Jamal with contempt and said, "What's the problem? I want to withdraw money, but your employee says my ID is not valid," Jamal replied, trying to control his anger. The manager took Jamal's driver's license, flipped it over and over, then shrugged. "I don't think this is real. You don't look like the customers we usually get here," he said. Echoing the employee's words, "This is a government-issued driver's license," Jamal repeated, his voice beginning to tremble with anger. "We have the right to refuse service to anyone, especially people like you," the manager said, his tone cold. "If you're not satisfied, you can leave. This is my bank," Jamal said, his voice echoing through the hall. "I'm the CEO of Grayson Trust." The manager and the employee looked at each other, then burst out laughing. "You're the CEO?" the manager said, his tone mocking. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Jamal replied, pulling out his business card. The manager took the card, stared at it, then frowned. "I don't believe it," he said. "You don't look like a CEO. These derogatory remarks are not suitable for a person like you. Get out of my bank. You filthy beggar." Jamal couldn't believe his eyes. He was being discriminated against in his own bank. "I will never forget this day. You will pay the price." In that moment, a series of chaotic emotions surged within Jamal. Surprise, anger, and deep disappointment. He couldn't believe that, Right in the bank he had worked so hard to build. A place that was supposed to be a symbol of fairness and respect. He was being treated like a lowlife. Just because of his skin color. The manager's derogatory remarks were like daggers piercing his heart. He felt betrayed, not only by the manager and the employee, but also by the very values he had always believed in. He wondered if his efforts to build an inclusive and fair working environment were truly meaningless. Were the promises he had made to his employees and customers just empty words? Within Jamal, a fire of anger ignited. It wasn't just personal insult, but a betrayal of trust. He had spent years building a bank based on fairness and respect. Yet right here, those values were being trampled upon. You will pay the price. Jamal's words were not just a threat, but a promise. He was determined not to let this injustice exist in his bank. He wanted to prove that, no matter how hard someone tried to demean others, truth and justice would ultimately prevail. The manager and the employee remained arrogant, but they didn't know what would happen next would make them regret it forever. After the manager's final insulting words echoed through the luxurious space of the branch, Jamal didn't rush to leave. He stood there, looking directly into the eyes of the two who had just insulted him, and took out his phone. "Mr. Larson," Jamal said, "I want you to hear this clearly." "Mr. Larson," the branch manager, heard Jamal's voice through the phone speaker and rushed out of his office. "Mr. Edwards, what's going on?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I'm in your branch. Right in front of me are two employees who just insulted me," Jamal said, his eyes never leaving the two. "And I want you here immediately." Jamal hung up, facing the two who had discriminated against him. But instead of feeling remorse, they remained arrogant and mocking. "Who does this person think they are?" Ms. Smith said, her tone full of contempt. "Just a country bumpkin who came to the city." "That's right," Mr. Jones said, laughing loudly. "They probably think that by pretending to have money, they can do whatever they want. But they forget that they're still just a lowlife." Mr. Larson arrived just in time to hear the insults. His face turned pale, and he took a deep breath. "Greetings, CEO." Then he looked at the two employees. "Ms. Smith, Mr. Jones," he said, "your behavior today is unacceptable. I have to fire you both immediately." The two employees looked at each other in disbelief. They had just been fired on the spot, and the bank's CEO was the one they had considered a lowlife. "Ms. Smith, Mr. Jones," Jamal said, his voice cold, "your words have clearly shown your true colors. You are not only discriminatory, but also uneducated and disrespectful." Ms. Smith stammered, "Sir, we didn't know." "Didn't know?" Jamal interrupted, his voice full of disappointment. "Don't you know that derogatory, racist remarks can deeply hurt others? Don't you know that, in a civilized society, everyone has the right to be treated equally and with respect?" Mr. Jones bowed his head, not daring to look Jamal in the eye. We're sorry. Sorry is not enough to erase what you've done," Jamal said. "Your actions have seriously violated the core values of Grayson Trust. I hope, after this, you will realize your mistakes and change." Ms. Smith looked up at Jamal, her eyes filled with tears. We're truly sorry. We promise we will never do it again." "Your promises are worthless," Jamal said, his voice firm. "Your actions have spoken for themselves. Now, leave." Ms. Smith sobbed. "Please, give us a chance. We need this job." "A chance?" Jamal raised an eyebrow. "You had a chance to show respect and professionalism. Instead, you chose to act discriminatingly and insultingly. You have lost your chance." Mr. Jones spoke up, his voice trembling. We know we were wrong. But please, think of our families. We need money to support them." "I understand your circumstances," Jamal said, his voice softening, "but I cannot condone wrongdoing. If I did, I would betray the very values I have always pursued." Then what should we do now?" Ms. Smith asked, her voice full of despair. "I cannot decide your future," Jamal said, "but I advise you to reflect on what has happened. Learn from your mistakes, and try to become better people." He turned to Mr. Larson. "Mr. Larson," he said, "I want you to organize an emergency meeting with all the branch employees immediately. I want them to understand that discrimination and such insulting words will not be tolerated at Grayson Trust." And I want them to know that anyone who behaves similarly will be fired immediately." "Yes, Mr. Edwards," Mr. Larson said, his voice filled with fear. "I will comply with all your requests." He turned and walked away, leaving the two standing frozen, not daring to look up. After being discriminated against at his own bank, Jamal Edwards, the CEO of Grayson Trust, was determined to change things from the root. He invested heavily in diversity and inclusion training programs for all employees, frequently visited branches, listened, and solved problems. Gradually, employees began to change, treating all customers with respect regardless of race or origin. Customers felt more welcomed and trusted. A year later, Grayson Trust was recognized as a leading company in diversity. Jamal emphasized that respect and fairness are everyone's rightful rights, not privileges. He wanted Grayson Trust to become a bank for everyone, where fairness was not just words, but actual actions. To spread stories of courage and truth, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for meaningful perspectives and stories, and leave a comment sharing your own story or thoughts. Let's affirm together that respect and fairness are the rights of all, not a privilege.